All right, Dave, I just read your text that you just sent me.
Yep.
Apparently you bought another scored saw, scored piston, cylinder, and all that. Now,
Yep.
from what I understand, when you bought it, you knew it was like that because you're
Yep.
thinking about putting either a new kit or just a piston and ring. Maybe you can
Yeah.
ask the question again for the viewers.
Yeah. So I just picked up this Husqvarna 50 special. It's an older saw, but from what I understand, I actually remember having a conversation with you this summer about that, about these saws, and you said these were the saws to have and that everybody had one at one point.
Absolutely, yeah. Everybody had one, just like the MS 260s now and MS 290s, 291s. Everybody's got one.
Right. How old do you think this saw is?
That saw, I would say, would be early 2000s or before that.
Okay, so probably 20 years old.
Oh yeah, and I remember when I was a young kid, I would see some of those saws.
Okay, cool.
They've been around for a long time. They don't make
Yeah.
them anymore.
They have all the newer stuff has different, more rounded body style and everything like
Yes,
that.
yes.
So
Okay.
I bought it. I knew it was scored. I don't know
Mhm.
if the camera's going to focus in all that well on it.
You
But
know what, Dave? If you put your flashlight on that piston, I think we're going to see it quite well. Okay, bring it up a little bit, Dave. Yeah, we can see that.
so as you've seen, I have some experience in sanding some pistons, some cylinders, and I've had some success in other saws. But I can't help but think it doesn't make sense for me to spend 3 to 4 hours sanding a piston, sanding a cylinder with the hopes that I can bring it back to life. So I guess my question is, at what point do you just buy a complete kit, a cylinder kit and cylinder and piston kit, versus taking your time and sanding out the original OEM cylinder?
Okay, so just to get it clear here, you're thinking of maybe just buying a new piston and rings and
Yeah.
sanding the cylinder? Is that the question? That's the question.
Or right, or trying
Yeah.
to save the original piston and maybe just buy a ring versus putting in this new kit that I have.
Okay, so you know what, Dave? Like you're putting in aftermarket kits,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
You're better off to put everything new: cylinder, piston, and rings. Okay?
Okay.
Sometimes you want to put a new piston pin bearing if you
Okay.
have play in the piston up and down. Okay? But
Okay.
coming back to your question here, for what you pay for an aftermarket kit, and make sure they're Nick Seal coated, it's not much more than if you just buy the piston and rings aftermarket. So for an extra 20, 30, 40 bucks, you're better off to buy the whole kit, Dave.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm saying this to everybody watching here. The reason for that is sometimes if you sand down the used cylinder, which you've had good luck with,
Hmm.
okay, on some of the saws, it doesn't always work out that well. And you might put a new piston and rings in the cylinder you've sanded, and depending on how much you've sanded that cylinder, the tolerances are not the same anymore. So the piston may end up being slightly loose in the cylinder,
Right.
and you're not going to have the compression that you should have. And when you think about it, if you're going to spend like 2-3 hours sanding a cylinder for an extra 25 to 40 bucks, it's well worth spending that money if you can afford it, and then everything's new.
Right. So, okay. So, I mean, if you go on like Bailey's or on
Yeah,
softparts.ca and here in Canada, you'll see like you can get, or even Amazon, you can get an aftermarket kit like this, Nicosil coated, which I want to ask you about after,
yeah.
for, 75, 80 bucks. Now, if you want the OEM kit, like the original equipment kit, or something of that high caliber, you're talking $150, $200, $300
Yes,
for the original stuff. Is there much of a difference between the original stuff and the aftermarket?
huge difference, Dave.
Okay.
Unless you can get an aftermarket kit that's made in Italy.
Hmm.
Tecomec used to make a lot of kits.
Okay.
Okay, they were just as good as the OEMs. Most chainsaws like Husqvarna and Stihl use a kit. Their manufacturer is called Mahle,
Yeah.
Mahle. So here's that kit, Dave. That cylinder that came off of a Stihl chainsaw. This one's branded Stihl.
Yep.
Mahle makes these cylinders. It doesn't say Mahle on this one,
Yep.
but usually it does. Okay, so there is a huge difference on getting an OEM kit versus an aftermarket, even if it's Nickel coated. Dave, what does it say on the cylinder of the Husqvarna 50 that you just took off?
It's a SK, so it's a stamped. It's like an S with a K in the middle
Okay.
of it.
Does it say
And
Mahle?
no, this one doesn't.
Okay.
Doesn't. I do have one though, on a
Yeah.
361
Okay.
that I'm working in. It says Molly right here,
Okay.
Mahle.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to earlier. So if you see that on a cylinder, you know it's an OEM cylinder. So the big difference is, Dave, from getting an OEM cylinder and an aftermarket cylinder is you're going to have better nickel coating,
Okay.
better machining.
Yep.
Okay, the ports are going to be smoother
Okay.
inside the cylinder, and the metal is going to be better.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that
It's day and night. It's day and night, Dave. And again, if you buy aftermarket kits, they don't always work. I've bought brand new kits, nickel coated on eBay. They arrived. It arrived. I put it on an MS260,
yep.
and the compression was so low. It was
Right.
so low that the saw didn't want to idle properly. It was hard to start. It was just
Okay.
as bad as the old kit. So you got to be careful with the aftermarket kits.
Okay. Could be a machining issue or something like that on their end, right?
Yeah, like if you buy kits from a company overseas on eBay and Amazon and you get a good one, try
Right.
to buy it from the same company. Try to buy your kits from the same company over and over
Right.
because some of them have better quality control.
Right. Okay. So even so, you recommend would you rather an aftermarket kit complete nickel coated
Mhm.
versus a new OEM piston and a sanded cylinder?
Um, so if you go with an OEM piston and rings
Yeah.
in your sanded OEM cylinder,
Yeah.
um, that's a different story than putting an aftermarket piston and rings in a sanded OEM cylinder.
I understand.
I don't want to confuse everybody here, but because if you buy an OEM piston and rings to put in a sanded OEM cylinder, the quality is better all around. The cylinder is better quality, even though it's been
Right.
sanded, and your piston and rings are better quality.
Okay.
But again, I mean, I could talk all day about this because depending on how much you had to sand that cylinder,
Right.
that will affect all those decisions.
Right.
Okay? But the bottom line, Dave, and everybody watching, you're always better to put the whole kit new. Cylinder, piston, and rings.
Right. Be it aftermarket or OEM.
Yes.
Okay.
OEM
So that
preferred, but most of the time, if you buy OEM kits, they're so expensive here in Canada, it's not even worth it.
right. It costs more than the saw a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, and I think that's done on purpose too, so that people just go and buy saws.
That's too bad. That is too bad. So I've got this cylinder. It's too far gone. I can feel it with my finger. I'm not even going to bother. I'm just going to throw this kit on. Now, I am just a regular homeowner. I'm not using this saw professionally. I'm not an
Mhm.
arborist. I'm not climbing trees. I'm not bucking logs every weekend.
Yeah,
Do you think this is probably good enough for my use?
I'd say so. Yeah,
Okay.
as long as it's a good quality kit.
Yes. And
Okay.
now, how do you tell the difference between a good quality kit and a poor quality kit?
Uh, you can't just go by looks. Sometimes they show up, they're nice and shiny.
Yeah.
Okay, they look good. It says they're Nixel coated, but the ultimate answer to that question will be once it's installed and you see how that chainsaw runs.
Okay.
That's the ultimate way to know.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of these aftermarket kits are non-branded.
Hmm.
So it's kind of Russian roulette, as I've said in a previous video.
Right.
Sometimes you don't know what you're getting until it's installed.
Right. That makes sense.
So I'll give you an
Well,
example. I'll give you an example of a friend of mine who did like you did. He had sanded down the cylinder and put in a piston and rings aftermarket in the OEM cylinder that he sanded,
yeah.
but it didn't last as long as it should have.
Okay.
For a while, I think he over revved it, maybe it was cold, but it just got scored up again.
Okay.
Okay, so sometimes if you sand down a cylinder too much, your new piston and rings that you're putting in will be more susceptible to getting scored again quickly.
Right. Right. Okay.
Okay, and I want to recommend here, if you're using aftermarket cylinder kits, make sure you have a lot of oil in your gas. Okay, so I'm going to recommend you use a good oil and mix it at 40 or 45 to 1.
Just that extra layer of protection.
Yes, they do need that. They do need
Okay.
that.
Okay. That's great. Well, clearly I've got my homework cut out for me here.
Yeah. Did I answer your questions? Do you have any more questions on that or?
No, that's great. I'm reflecting on the 3 or 4 hours I spent on the 272 and the lemon saw, and yeah, they both run great. But
Yeah,
is it really worth it for the 4 hours of time versus just throwing a new kit on here?
I know. Yeah, because you have to go to work and you don't want to spend all your days off sanding down
Yeah,
cylinders and pistons, right?
yeah,
Okay. Well, I hope this answered everybody's questions here.
yeah.
There are aftermarket kits that are a little better than others.
Okay,
So just do your homework. If anybody watching the video knows of a good aftermarket company for cylinder kits, just comment below the video. Like I said, Tecomec used to make a lot of kits, but I don't see them around anymore. They were just as good as the OEMs.
oh, wow, okay,
But you can get good aftermarket kits because I know you've put some in some of the other saws you've bought and it's worked out for you.
yeah, and you're exactly right. I'd love to hear it in the comments and see if
Mhm.
someone has a good source because um, I've got a lot of these blown up saws that I'm coming across. So
Yeah.
appreciate it. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good, Dave.
Hey, buddy. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching and make sure you're subscribed to our channels as well and that you're following me on social media as well. All the links are below the video. And thanks again for being on my channel, Dave,
Thank
and for
you for having me.
watching. And you guys have a good day.
See you,
Okay.
Donnie.
Bye.